Bob, you've reported relentlessly on the detention of men, women, and children along the US-Mexico border. What do we know about what's happening with the spread of the virus and treatment of people who might have the virus within these crowded detention facilities?
Well, certainly the biggest explosion in this region is at the Otero County Processing Center down in Chaparral, where the most recent count is, I think, 58 detainees at the ICE facility. Now, of course, that's a multi-purpose facility, so you also have another 30-some inmates who are detained by the U.S. Marshal Service there that have also tested positive, plus 21 New Mexico Corrections Department detainees. So you have more than 100 cases being reported there. The bulk of them are in the ICE facility, though, where you have these asylum seekers and other immigrants who've been detained. Uh, we're hearing the place holds about 1,000 or can hold 1,000 people. We've been consistently hearing that the numbers have been staying up around 700. By contrast, the El Paso Processing Center, which is an ICE-run facility rather than a private-run facility that's here in El Paso, also has a capacity of about 1,000, but they've decreased their population to about 300, and as a result, they've only had 12 cases of COVID-19. So there's a definite disparity there with the facility in New Mexico, and we're also starting to see some other cases popping up at Torrance and at Cibola in New Mexico, but nowhere near the numbers we're seeing at the Otero County Processing Center.
Do you have a sense of what conditions are like inside these facilities? Are they able to be isolating people or treating people?
So, from what we're hearing from attorneys of people who are detained there, if you test positive, you're basically put in solitary confinement. And that raises some other issues too. That the ICE will refer to it as medical isolation. But putting a person into solitary confinement for a 14-day period runs right up against the 15-day mark that the UN declares as a form of torture when you place somebody in solitary confinement. So they're isolating detainees who test positive by themselves in these solitary cells. Although that may not be possible as these case numbers continue to grow, they may have to, I'm sure they are adapting. Otherwise, if you've been exposed to a fellow detainee who tests positive and you haven't been tested yet, they'll put you in what they call a cohort. And so they put, this is basically a dormitory style setting where you have a series of bunk beds that are still fairly closely packed together. And that's one of the reasons you've seen the widespread eruption of these outbreaks, not just in the El Paso, New Mexico area, but all across the country. These are very difficult places to establish social distancing in. Just something as simple as making a phone call to your lawyer, you're using a phone that somebody else had used minutes earlier. And until recently, they hadn't been doing a very good job of sterilizing those phones and things like that. So these are conditions like any other detention facility that are just ripe for the spread of any infectious disease.
Right. Lauren, you've been asking a really important question. Customs and Border Patrol agents interact with hundreds of people on a daily basis and are not required to be wearing PPE. What have you learned in the last week or so about that?
Well, I initially approached that story wondering if the federal agencies at the border had the right access to personal protective equipment, and it turns out they do. Their union representative says they do. They have access to everything, even some of the equipment that that nurses have been clamoring for. But without a doubt, they're not using it regularly. I've been crossing the border for stories on a fairly regular basis over the past 3 or 4 weeks. And while you'll sometimes see CBP officers at the customs houses and at the kiosks for passenger vehicles wearing an N95 mask, a lot of times you won't see them wearing it at all. And, it's not entirely clear why. I think that there's some discomfort involved. One of the officers told me he had an N95 mask strapped to his belt, not on his face. And I said, why aren't you wearing it? And he said, well, we have to get down on the ground and look under cars, and it's hot. And, I think he was sort of uncomfortable. At the same time, for the traveling public, I think it's really worrisome. I was placed into a secondary inspection on a couple of occasions. There's a lot less traffic, and for a variety of reasons, they like to check vehicles a second time. And that requires pulling through, turning off your car, and having officers really sort of probe and search the vehicle. I have a 5-year-old daughter. She was in the back, and the officers who were at my window and checking my car weren't wearing face masks. It is a recommendation by the agency. It is not mandatory. So there's not really anyone enforcing that.
Right. Lauren, you also reported recently about how border towns in Mexico are being affected. People are losing their jobs, but in addition to that, the Mexican peso has crashed and food prices have spiked. How are people surviving right now?
It's really pins and needles in Juarez right now. The city's 300,000 maquila workers, or the workers who work in the assembly plants that in our region largely feed the automotive industry in the US, are really caught between a rock and a hard place. Many want to go back to work. Many who were sent home do want to go back to work because they're only being paid a fraction of their salary. In some cases, just 40%. That might amount to $30 or $40 per week, which in a border city is absolutely not enough to live on, especially with a family. At the same time, the maquilas have been centers of these outbreaks. Lear Corp, which makes automotive parts for US auto manufacturers, has been probably the most transparent of the big corporations that have assembly plants in Juarez. And they haven't given an exact number of maquila workers who have died. The city has said it's 17, but that update came from several weeks ago. But they did see a big outbreak at one of their plants, and several workers have died. So the corporations are trying to get sanitary measures in place, new protocol, perhaps new design for the way production is laid out. And many are starting to go back to work this week, next week, and then starting June 1st. But it's a huge risk. Some of these plants have thousands of workers in a single facility.
So, Bob, Texas is moving ahead far more aggressively than our state is in terms of reopening. How do you see that potentially affecting New Mexico?
First of all, it's important to note that El Paso was given an exception this week, as was Amarillo, which is another area where a lot of New Mexicans might go through, because the governor did exempt some areas that are still seeing ongoing problems. So we'll see next week. But as of this Friday, Las Cruces and El Paso will generally be pretty similar as far as openness goes. That could change again next week as El Paso expands more. But there's still some real concerns when you look at the data for Doña Ana County. The highest infection rates tend to be in the areas closest to El Paso, because places like Santa Teresa and Sunland Park really have a lot more in common with El Paso than they do with, say, Las Cruces. And so people work here, they tend to business here. So that is one of the challenges of this region that we live in. Lauren talked about what's going on in Maquiladoras. So we're really in a tri-state, multinational region here. And that illustrates the difficulties of adopting policies to control the spread of this disease. So Michelle Lujan Grisham can set some edicts in Santa Fe for how Sunland Park and Santa Teresa are going to work. But if Greg Abbott in Austin sets looser restrictions, it really will undermine whatever edicts she puts out. So we are still seeing increases in cases here in El Paso, some really frightening hospitalization numbers. I suspect that's more related to what happened here on Mother's Day, when we had a pretty big breakdown in social distancing compliance. So it's a little too early to say that the reopening of the economy is related to any of these cases, but it's something that bears watching.
Right. Well, thank you both so much. I appreciate your incredible reporting, and I'm really glad we were able to get you on the show this week. Stay safe, and thank you so much.
You be safe too.
Thank you, Laura. Bye.